language lovers, it's Jessica with For the Love of Languages. If you're just now joining me, welcome to the 6th episode of the 52 Pickup Project, where I explore 52 of the world's languages over the course of a year. This week's featured language is Persian. Persian belongs to the Iranian branch of the Indo-Iranian subdivision of the Indo-European language family. It has 3 standard varieties: Farsi of Iran, which will be the focus of this video, Dari of Afghanistan, and Tajik of Tajikistan. If you've been following the series up to now, you probably know that the usual lineup is a teacher and a student. The teacher that I've been studying with on italki for the past year and some change was unfortunately not available for an interview, but was so kind to answer a lot of my questions that beginners usually have about learning the language. Here's what she had to say about all that. In general, Farsi students from a Romance or Germanic language background find Farsi moderately difficult compared to learning the language in their own language family. And students who have a strong Arabic background find Farsi quite easy because from the script and writing system to the lexicon, Arabic has had a big influence on Farsi. For me, the most enjoyable part of teaching is integrating all aspects of the language to get learners to speak Farsi and understand native speakers. Persian itself has 3 main varieties: Tajik, Dari, and Farsi, which are spoken in Tajikistan, Afghanistan, and Iran. As for the Iranian Persian, there is Standard Farsi, which all Iranians speak, and a variety of dialects across the country, and some of those varieties are quite different from the standard language. For example, in Standard Farsi, we put possessives after nouns, so my mother would be madaram, but in northern parts of Iran it would be mimar, where the possessive precedes the noun, like in English. In the beginning stages, the word order is a bit difficult because Farsi has a subject, object, verb word order. So unlike English, for example, sentences tend to end with a verb, and it can be challenging to learn the vocabulary at first too. Although Farsi has a lot of borrowed words from English, such as upload, download, and French, such as merci, the basic lexicon is closer to Arabic than Romance and Germanic languages. At the intermediate levels, it can be a bit challenging to learn to use the perfective and imperfective aspects in order to be able to express continuation or completeness of an action. And in the advanced levels, learning moods such as conditional and passive could be difficult for Farsi learners. One complex aspect of Persian culture is tarof, which is used to show politeness and hospitality, where a person offers you something very persistently and you are expected to refuse that offering with equal persistence. For example, if you are a guest in an Iranian's house, they might offer you several servings of food, or to stay with them for several days, or take an antique from their home as a gift, to all of which you should say no, but show that you appreciate the gesture. This can be really confusing because sometimes people actually want you to do all those things, and it's really difficult, even for Iranians themselves, to tell whether the person's offering is sincere or not. The word khar means donkey in Farsi, but there are a number of compounds made with this word that have a funny tone to them. For example, kharpul, which literally means donkey money, is a slang term to refer to an extremely wealthy person. Kharhun literally means donkey reader, but it is used to refer to a person who studies in an excessive way. Kharshans refers to an extremely lucky person, and kharkar is slang for an excessively hardworking person. So khar part of these words means too much in a sense. Linked to the concept of tarof, we have a common and funny saying that goes, tarof umad nayumad dare, which means someone might, through no fault of their own, take your tarof literally and, for example, come to your house to stay with you once you have invited them to stay with you for several days, not pay for your service, or simply take what you're offering them if you're using tarof terms. What are some unique features of Farsi? This is a good question which can be adequately answered only through comparative linguistic research. However, Farsi is among languages that have a right to left writing system. It doesn't have a grammatical gender. For example, we even have a word for he and she, which is u, and it is a pro-drop language like Spanish, which means you can drop the subject pronoun in your sentence and still get your message across because Farsi verb endings clearly show you who you are talking about. Although these features cannot be considered unique in the true sense of the word, together they are a part of what makes the language unique. To me, the most memorable reason that one language learner loved was how soft Farsi sounds. Because for me, the sound of the language is one of the main reasons I get into that language.
بی تو مهتاب شبی باز از آن کوچه گذشتم، همه تن چشم شدم خیره به دنبال تو گشتم، شوق دیدار تو لبریز شد از جام وجودم، شدم آن عاشق دیوانه که بودم. در نهانخانه جانم گل یاد تو درخشید، باغ صد خاطر خندید، عطر صد خاطر پیچید. یادم آمد که شبی با هم از آن کوچه گذشتیم، پر گشودیم و در آن خلوت دلخواسته گشتیم. ساعتی بر لب آن جوی نشستیم، تو همه راز جهان ریخته در چشم سیاهت، من همه محو تماشای نگاهت. آسمان صاف و شب آرام، بخت خندان و زمان رام، خوشه ماه فرو ریخته در آب، شاخه ها دست برآورده به مهتاب، شب و صحرا و گل و سنگ همه دل داده به آواز شباهنگ. یادم آید تو به من گفتی از این عشق حذر کن، لحظه ای چند بر این آب نظر کن، آب آینه عشق گذران است. تو که امروز نگاهت به نگاهی نگران است، باش فردا که دلت با دگران است. تا فراموش کنی چندی از این شهر سفر کن. با تو گفتم حذر از عشق ندانم، سفر از پیش تو هرگز نتوانم. روز اول که دل من به تمنای تو پر زد، چو کبوتر لب بام تو نشستم. تو به من سنگ زدی، من نه رمیدم نه گسستم، باز گفتم که تو صیادی و من آهوی دشتم. تا به دام تو درافتم همه جا، گشتم حذر از عشق ندانم نتوانم. اشکی از شاخه فرو ریخت، مرغ شب ناله تلخی زد و بگریخت. اشک در چشم تو لرزید، ماه بر عشق تو خندید. یادم آید که دگر از تو جوابی نشنیدم، پای در دامن اندوه کشیدم، نه گسستم نه رمیدم. رفت در ظلمت غم آن شب و شبهای دگر هم، نگرفتی دگر از عاشق آزرده خبر هم، نکنی دیگر از آن کوچه گذر هم. بی تو اما به چه حالی من از آن کوچه گذشتم.
Persian has a rich classical literature and poetry. It is the language of some of the great contemporary filmmakers, and Persian art and culture are all full of unique subtitles, all of which you can enjoy firsthand through learning the language. Speak from the first day. Don't let anything pile up. Use everything you learn immediately, and don't be afraid of making mistakes at all. Iranians love to hear you speak their language. I love the sound of Farsi and how flexible and open to creativity my language is. The flexibility that has created the great difference between the written and spoken forms of the language that we see today.
اسرار ازل را نه تو دانی و نه من، وین حرف معما نه تو خوانی و نه من. هست از پس پرده گفتگوی من و تو، چون پرده برافتد نه تو مانی و نه من.
Since everybody's language learning experiences are different, I decided to talk to my friend Zane, who's been doing this for about the same amount of time as I have, but has taken a totally different approach. While I've been studying with teachers, he's decided to go about this totally on his own. Is it possible? Well, let's hear what he had to say about the resources that he uses and what he's been doing to succeed. So I'm here with Zane. Hi, Zane. How are you?
Good. How about you?
Pretty good. So I met you probably in a lot of these online language groups, and I think we may have attended a polyglot conference or two, but never crossed paths before. Which ones have you been to?
So I didn't really actually get involved into the online polyglot community until early 2017, and then I went to the one in Iceland in October 2017.
Okay, yeah, I was at that one too, but I guess we just, like I said, didn't cross paths, and then met in one of these groups where we're both making contributions in Farsi. You a lot more than than me, because I'm not quite as secure in the language yet. So how long have you been studying Farsi?
Well, I started in I want to say exactly in February 2018.
Okay, so just a little. Yeah, it's a little over a year, maybe
Yep.
about a year and a half. And what made you want to learn Farsi?
Well, I'll have to go back a little bit. So basically, I studied French in college, and then when I was in college, I got this idea that I should speak Spanish and Portuguese, also to kind of speak the languages of the Americas.
Uh-huh.
And then when I started to get more free time, I was working from home in 2017, and then I made this goal. I was like, all right, beginning of 2017, I'm going to methodically teach myself a non-Romance language from scratch. So at first I did German, then I got bored with it, and then I switched to Turkish, and then I got more interested in sort of Middle Eastern languages, and at the end of 2017 I started thinking that maybe I should do Persian because it's uncommon, and it uses a different alphabet. Because I thought to myself, I was like, I don't think I'll ever be able to learn something with a different alphabet. I chose Persian because of the different alphabet, and also because it wouldn't be as difficult as Arabic. I felt like I would have been just tearing my hair out. So yeah, I started in February 2018.
Okay, yeah, I felt the same way about Arabic, and I had even enrolled in Arabic classes and failed miserably. I was the worst student in the class, and it was just a crash and burn after that. And even with Farsi, I had tried a couple times. So my experience has been classroom, which didn't work out very well,
Yeah.
and then online learning, private lessons through services like italki. But one of the reasons why I really felt like I wanted to talk to you was because you're just doing this on your own, and I can't even fathom how you get started. How did you get started? What were the first steps that you took to start making progress?
Yeah, well, getting started is always the hardest with anything you're trying to accomplish in life, and the first thing I noticed was I saw that there was first of all, I saw there was a couple people that did it, which gave me a little bit of motivation. I saw that Tim Donner kid was doing it a couple years ago.
Yeah, I've seen him online. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I was talking with I think it was Ellen Joven. She told me that she had a friend who wrote a book. It's just called How to Read and Write Persian on on Amazon. And I decided it was best to get a book because previously I had tried to learn Arabic just by looking at the symbols on the screen, and I remember one of my good friends from the polyglot community, she's Lebanese, and I was asking her to try to teach me, we were sending screenshots back and forth. I could not differentiate between the letters. So I bought that book on Amazon, and I said, all right, the first thing I'm going to do is do this book, because like I realized I've heard some advice from people that you need to actually learn how to do the strokes in like a language so you can sort of write it how the native speakers did. So and because that was my other thing, I was like, I'm not going to do like transliteration. That's tacky. You know, I wanted to be like non-tacky. Um, so I did that book, and I was pretty amazed in that like I was doing it like I did it for 5 days. You know, like it was actually just Monday through Friday, and then you know by the weekend it was all starting to come together, which was mind-boggling to me because I didn't have any previous thing I had accomplished that would make me think I could do that.
Mhm. I've tried with the book, but I think I require a high level of hand holding from a teacher and having to be guided through the lesson. So I had actually worked with the teacher to learn how to read and write. So whenever you're practicing the writing part, are you doing it by hand or more, or doing it by text or on the computer typing it?
So I've gone through a couple like different notebooks, and like as you can see, like what I do is I write everything pretty much by hand. Um, and yeah, like especially early on, I found myself I was writing just like basic words over and over again, but I realized that's what needs to be done. Um, and yeah, it's very daunting because you feel like you're reading at the speed of like a 5-year-old or something. In particular with the Arabic script, I think it looks very foreign to us who speak the or who use the Latin alphabet, because I've always got this impression that for whatever reason the font is always very small on like computer screens.
Right,
So
I have to blow it up to like 150.
yeah, and that doesn't seem to be as much of a problem anymore, I guess. But yeah, that was the thing because I had to like also like so I had to learn how to write it, and then also the typing. I've gotten definitely a lot faster just from memorizing where it is on my phone. I only write on my phone and by hand. I don't
Okay.
have like a mapped keyboard or anything.
Yeah. Do you feel like because you're writing it out by hand that you're able to commit it to memory a lot more than maybe somebody who's not spending the time just crunching it out and writing it? Do you feel like it sticks a little bit better?
Honestly, I ask myself the same thing every day. Like, I try to like think like, is this a waste of time for me, or is it useful? And like, I guess what I say to myself is that like, I at least have something to show, and I have more to show now than I did a couple months ago, and it's certainly better than not doing it at all. So
Yeah.
I think like just like invest, because one of the things was like I remember like I learned that if you got a goal, like if you talk about it, you're more likely to succeed. So like if I started like telling people like Zane or like if I start telling people I'm going to learn Persian, and then a couple months later people are like, oh, Zane speaks Persian, let's get him over here to talk to this person. If I don't have anything to show, then I'm going to feel bad about myself. So
Yeah, but that's
self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah.
and so besides that resource, what other resources do you use? What do you like, and what would you recommend to somebody who's kind of shopping in the language that is thinking, oh, I think I'm going to study Persian. What should I go out and buy, or what can I get for free?
Well, first off, you should definitely get that writing book if you don't know it already. It's just like How to Write Persian on Google. I actually just gifted it to my friend Manuel recently, and hopefully he's going to use it. So I would recommend getting that. And then I don't know if they have this in English yet, but they have this Assimil Persian. So if they have an English version, that's good. But if you have a knowledge of French, it's good. And it's really small and thick. And the reason it's really thick is because they have like the transliterations. Now, is it useful? Yes, I think it is useful. And what's one thing that's good about it is it's very the texts are very short, and the font is very big. The texts are short, so like you can do a couple minutes a day, and I think pick up a word or two every day. And I think I think it's good at a pinch. So I would recommend that. And I also the book I've gone completely all the way through because I've done Assimil on and off is I did the Colloquial series Persian, like I did this all the way through, and I was proud of myself. And like I could probably still reference it, but there's like an unbelievable amount of good information in here, because um, the difference between like learning Persian and when I was learning Turkish was Turkish. The app stuff available is very high quality, so you have a very good quality Duolingo course, and also Memrise has like 7 levels of Turkish, like made by the company, so it's not like a fan made one or whatever. And like just going through those, I learned a lot of Turkish. But the problem is with Persian, those like official apps weren't available. There's an app called Mondly, which is similar to kind of like Duolingo, but I don't know how much I learned on it, but it was, I think even if I went today, it could be helpful. But what you'll have to realize with a language like Persian, which is a little less developed with like resources, you're definitely going to have to use some print, and it's going to be helpful to, you're going to have to also probably just ask some people things like the old-fashioned way, interact with people.
Yeah, I know 2 of my teachers are making up some of their own just because they're kind of hard to come by. Now, as for your practicing, okay, so you've explained to us how you're practicing your writing and your reading. Like the other 2 skills, like the speaking and listening, what are the most effective ways in going at this by yourself that you can practice the speaking and that you practice listening?
Well, so for listening, like I said, so yeah, there's that app Mondly I used, and like Glossica has a lot of audio, but you need to be relatively advanced. And also on Memrise, there are a couple community-made courses with a lot of material that I especially used early on, and they had a lot of audio. But the most important audio source for me, I think, is with the Colloquial series, because with this series, all of the audio is available online on a website. So rather than like having to plug in a CD, which is ancient, you just go to the website. So that is very good. Those are both very good for audio. Yep.
Okay.
And
sounds great.
yeah.
Yeah, I have a hard time. I had to get a CD player from somebody who was giving it away because I don't even I don't own one. I think there's one in my car.
Yeah, I have one on this computer I bought, but I don't really use it. And then with speaking, so one of the benefits about Persian is that it's spoken in at least 3 countries, actually more than 3 countries. So obviously, you have Iran and you have Afghanistan, but also like and Tajikistan, but also there's people who like identify as like Tajik, ethnic Tajiks that you'll meet from Uzbekistan and stuff like that. So with me, a lot of the things, if anyone watches Moses McCormick on YouTube and he does like Level Up, I pretty much do the same concept. I will speak in real life whenever I can, even if I'm gonna make a fool of myself and like a beginner, like I'm just gonna do something because that like gives me a piece of like motivation. It's so like real life interactions. Looking for just Iranian friends. Like it's most major cities. There's surely some first generation people from Iran, and also of course Afghanistan. It's very easy if you like take something like Uber a lot. You're gonna see like what country they're from on their profile and their languages. So I've like I try to jump on the real life opportunities whenever they come up, but online people are extremely well connected. So I was in a couple like I first I had trouble finding people from like Iran to speak with in language groups. So what I did was I joined groups that Iranian people would be in, and then I just started posting, and I just got like an unbelievable amount of like people like just sliding into my DMs, but not like in in a creepy way. And that was very motivating early on, but like at that time when I started doing that, like maybe like 2 or 3 months afterwards, I'd started learning last year. It was like it was very exhausting because people would always ask me like, "Hello, where are you from? Why are you learning Farsi?" And it got exhausting to answer that question, but also it was really hard for me to type back then. Now it's like muscle memory. But yeah, those and those Iranian people are very nice and like because I feel like they're sort of isolated. so from the world, and it's nice for them to see an American or who's like interested in their language. And then also people from Afghanistan. I've seen tons on language learning sites, and very kind people, and there's kind people everywhere. But there's definitely no shortage of people. Like when I was learning Icelandic, it's not like this is a tiny language. There's gonna be a lot of people to speak with, definitely.
And can you tell me like about a positive experience that you've had, such as maybe you've been out, maybe you've overheard somebody speaking Farsi, and then you engaged in conversation, or have you had to use it on the spot, or had any opportunities like that in person?
Yeah, I use it. I've had at least two in the past 2 weeks. On Thursday, I was at Panera. That's my work from home day, and there was these two women, like really old ladies, speaking a language, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's Persian. So I'm just gonna go up to them and be like, "You guys speaking Farsi?" It turned out they were actually speaking. I can't remember off the top of my head. It starts with a G. They explained that they were speaking a closely related Indo-Iranian language that's spoken by the Caspian Sea. And then I spoke to them, and they just spoke to me in standard Persian. And they're like, "Oh, do you have an Iranian girlfriend or boyfriend?" Which I found very progressive for 80-year-old ladies. And I was like, "No, it's just purely out of passion." And I showed them my Assimil book, and they got happy. So that was good. And then about 2 weeks ago, I was getting my wisdom teeth out, and the one of the dental assistants or the surgical assistants I feel like she was being kind of rude to me, but I was like, I'm pretty sure she's Iranian. And then like the other person with her, like not because it's just I suspected they were based on their name and accent. And then she had this other friend, and I said something. I was like, "Oh, you guys have interesting names or something," or "I like your names," or no, I said you both have names that start with an M, and they were like, "Oh, we're both Iranian." So then I spoke to them in Persian until I fully went under the laughing gas and anesthesia. I was getting my wisdom teeth out. So I have those kind of experiences all the time.
That's nice. I had something kind of similar with Turkish. I'm not an eavesdropping person, but the second I thought I heard it, I was listening really hard. But it's fun to be able to, whenever you hear it, to be able to jump in and test your wings. So I guess the last question I have for you is, if somebody's wanting to learn and isn't ready to commit with a teacher, do you think learning by yourself is for everybody? I know I really struggled hard with it, but what would you say to encourage somebody that's thinking about going that route? And what would you say, what first steps of advice would you give to them?
Well, the first thing is you need to psychologically convince yourself that you can do it and that it's worth it for you. A lot of people today, everyone's life is different. A lot of people are, working multiple jobs and doing this and that. But a lot of people also just spend a lot of time just goofing off. And you can actually translate a lot of your goofing off and social media usage, into actual, practical language learning, interacting. So what I say to people is that, you need to gather resources, like how to read and write and things like that. And then, come up with, how you can fit, itty bits of learning into your day and keep it up. So with sort of the apps out there like Duolingo, it's they have a streak. So you need to kind of find a way to set a streak for yourself, and then just keep doing it, and just don't beat yourself up when you can't do it, but you got to kind of get that in your head that there's a difference between can and cannot, and choose not to, and do and do not want to. But it's highly beneficial. Anytime you learn a new language, it's going to improve your life. In particular, Persian. It's kind of like it's not like the craziest, hardest language out there, but it's a little bit it'll make you feel good about yourself. These things are beneficial for you mentally, physically, and then when you're out with your friends, and then they suddenly see you jump into some random person's conversation, it's like you're a movie star or something.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you so much for telling your viewpoint and sharing with us the things that you've done to be able to get to the point where you are with Persian. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Of course, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
I was very fortunate to get to speak to my next guest. If you've been searching YouTube for Farsi tutorials, then you've probably come across her channel, Farsi Wizard. Now I'm speaking to Tina, who is going to tell us all about what content she puts on her channel and how she goes about choosing it. Hi everybody, I'm here with Tina, who runs a channel called Farsi Wizard, and I just checked again this morning and it looks like it's got 12.1 thousand subscribers and about 89 useful videos with all sorts of material for anybody that's looking to learn Farsi. So Tina, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been teaching Farsi and how long you've been doing the channel?
Sure. First of all, thank you for reaching out and wanting to do the interview with me.
Absolutely.
And salam to your audience. You know, that's a very easy word, right? So salam is very easy. It's hello. Okay, so I started teaching online in 2007. And I have been, I think, running the YouTube channel since 2011, December. And honestly, I had no idea that it would get so big. You know, I started it just to share a little bit, of what I knew as a teacher with the people who would be interested in learning. But what happened was more people reached out and they asked for more videos, and it just, it went from there,
What kind of video requests are you getting whenever they reach out to you? What are they wanting you to cover?
Well, all sorts of things under the blue dome. So a lot of people are interested in learning, the grammatical aspect of language. For example, they want to know how to make sentences. Other people are interested in just building their vocabulary, or they want to teach their kids. Interestingly enough, there are many people out there, who are Iranians outside of Iran. Their children were born outside of Iran, and now they want their kids, to be able to learn and basically to speak the language, right? So I get requests for, kind of making videos for kids, or, games in Farsi, something interesting that kids would like to, to just have a look at or learn from. And then, of course, there are other people who are kind of more into literature and poetry, and they want me to record, poems with subtitles. It was very surprising to me, honestly, to see that, a good number of people reached out and they asked me about, the poetry, because, it's something very specific. I mean, Persian classical poetry is something that, not everyone would be interested in, but it was very surprising that a good number of people wanted to see more videos like that. So I was very happy, to know that there is a crowd out there who's interested in exploring Persian literature.
Yeah, I bet there's not a whole lot of resources for that out there and recording. So I can imagine that people are really interested in that whenever they find something like that, they want to have more examples. So tell me, where do most of your students come from?
Oh my God, from all over the world. I mean, you cannot imagine, like from all the corners of the world. And I mean, I have students from little islands, places in South America, Brazil, for example. I had 2 students from there. I had students from, 1 student from China. I have the students mostly from the US. Mostly, they come from the US and Europe, mostly. So I have, a few students from Switzerland, UK, France. But it's just amazing, like all over the world, there are people who want to actually learn Farsi. And for me, it's something like I could never imagine. Like I would have people from like little tiny islands like Timor.
Oh,
and
wow.
I'm like, wow, why do you want to learn Farsi? And the majority of cases, the reasons would be 2 main categories. The first category would be people who would want to learn Farsi for, job-related reasons, basically career reasons. And the second category would be love. People are married to Iranians or they have kids, and they want to learn. They want to be able to communicate. So those are the most important. And of course, there is a number of, there is a tinier percentage of people who are just interested in, just learning it because it sounds pretty or they're interested in poetry or literature, but that's like a smaller percentage of my students. Normally, people want to learn it for very good practical reasons.
So with that information, how do you go about choosing your content?
For my channel, you mean?
Yes.
Well, honestly, it's like whatever that I'm in the mood for. Like it's the work of, love. It's something that I have to actually be passionate about. So it's possible that one morning I wake up and, I'm in the mood for like making a, poetry video, and I just go ahead and do that. Honestly, there is no particular system. However, when I get into a particular content, for example, with alphabet, I don't switch to another type of video until I'm finished with the whole alphabet series, for example. So I don't do absolutely random videos. There is a system, but it's not very strict, right? So,
what is your favorite type of content to post?
well, I like actually all types of. I mean, honestly, I don't remember any moment that I didn't like a video that I was making. So. But my most favorite type is probably the poetry videos, because I have to go drink a lot of, green tea and honey. So I have to do some ritual for it, no? And then I have to go choose a poem. So it has its creative aspect. And because I love poetry, it's something that naturally I enjoy more.
So now let's kind of shift gears and talk about fluency and immersion. A lot of people believe that in order to get fluent in a language, you need to be immersed, and for a lot of people, that's not possible. So, can you maybe give us some tips or examples for how to kind of create fluency? How to create immersion at home and in your everyday life?
Right. One of the best things that people can do when they cannot, of course, travel to Iran, it's not that easy these days. One of the best things they can do is to use movies, Iranian movies, to watch Iranian movies, because it's almost like you're creating an artificial immersion experience, right? So you sit in front of a movie. Of course, I do not recommend watching a movie absolutely without any subtitles, because you wouldn't have any clues what's happening. So,
right.
The way that I would recommend, my students to do it is, first, to watch the Iranian movie with English subtitles or whatever subtitles that, that would be relevant to them based on their native language. So to get this story. Then the second time, I ask them to watch the movie with Persian or Farsi subtitles, if they know how to read the script. Of course, many of my students do not know how to read the script because they just want to learn the language for conversational purposes. They don't know how to, kind of actually read and write in Persian alphabet. But, depending on the level of the students. So, but either case, if you want to really expose yourself to the natural way that this language is spoken, movies would be wonderful. Persian songs, another great option, Especially songs are very easy a lot of times because there's a repetition, no? There are many lines that are repeated. And the lyrics are available usually online. Usually they come with a translation. On my Facebook page, every now and then I put a song and I kind of translate the lyrics. So, people who are there, they can actually, kind of benefit from that also. There's also a website, which is irib.ir, which actually, if you go to that website, you will have access to live broadcasts, right, from Iran. So the Iranian TV and radio is right there. You can actually have like real time. You can watch, all the programs in real time as if you're inside the country. So, but that I will recommend for more advanced students because everything is in Farsi. So you have to be able to navigate, to click on things,
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'll put some of the links in the description. Sure. That way people can check that out.
Of course.
So let's talk about what you had said about some people not, they wanted to go straight into conversation, so they're not learning the Farsi script right away. I think there's probably a good majority of those people that have learned what one of my friends calls it Finglish, or maybe Pinglish, Persian yes. English, Farsi English, yes. Using the Latin alphabet. And I know some people who've started off that way, and then they kind of get themselves in a jam when they need to go look up a word, and can't quite do that. What is your recommendation for somebody that's just starting off? Do you feel like it's important to just get that alphabet right out of the way in the beginning, or learn the Finglish and and then revisit the alphabet later?
Right. I would say, it really depends on what you want to do with your Farsi. This is really a case-by-case situation. So sometimes people are studying Farsi because, let's say they're studying Persian literature. I have students who are in university and they're studying this and they need my help with things. So obviously, I would say it's very important for those people to know the alphabet because they're doing this professionally. They cannot, they cannot be majoring, Persian literature without knowing the alphabet, right?
Sure.
But then in other cases, people just want to be able to communicate with their beloved ones. They want to say a couple of things to impress, their fiance. So it really depends on your goal and what you're going to do with this language. In this case, if you're just going to use it for communication purposes, I don't think that learning the Persian alphabet is necessary. The reason I say this is because most people get very discouraged. If I get started with Persian alphabet, it's going to be boring and difficult, and they're not going to be able to focus enough, and they're not going to be able to stay long enough with me for me to be able to teach them, communication in Farsi. So what I do is I always start with just really getting them kind of started with speaking and using the language in a practical way, just simple things, hi, how are you, good morning. And Pinglish is absolutely what I will use, so whatever that I teach them, I type it for them, if it's Skype or, whatever other medium that we use. So they have a typed version of the class in Pinglish and they can practice. So later on, when they become a little bit more comfortable, then they may get more curious about, okay, how is it written in actual, Persian script? And then I will teach them. But I wouldn't impose it on them. If they come to me and they say, listen, I just want to be able to talk with my friend or family, I don't have time. That's another issue because most of my students are professionals. They don't have time really. And their schedule is changing every week. So we schedule week by week. I try to be flexible. They can say, okay, listen, next week I can do Tuesday and Wednesday, and the week after I'm not there, and the week after I can do Thursday. So there is this kind of limit with time also, which means that I have to really, with a laser sharp focus, just get to what they want and just get them where they want to be quickly, as quickly as possible. That is why I don't kind of throw the Persian script, at them if they don't want it. Other people, if they want it, I will be more than happy to teach them. It's not something that's very difficult, but you have to be ready for it, right? So you have to be ready to spend a couple of classes just sitting there and not saying anything and absorbing information. And, it can get a little bit boring at the beginning, but ultimately, once you learn it, it's very rewarding because you can actually, look at the dictionary, look up words, or you can, look at a book or newspaper, you can pick up words. Another problem, this is, by the way, it reminds me, there's a big problem for people who are learning Persian without learning the alphabet, and that is they cannot use the dictionary because dictionaries have not been designed in English or Finglish, right? So this is really the issue there. And I really try to kind of give the vocabulary that my student needs. For example, if they need to, let's say, okay, I just need to learn romantic things to say to someone. So I will give them the vocabulary and that's it. And we will be working on those things. And if they have any questions, they can always ask me. So I'm the dictionary for them, I guess.
Well, that's great. Yeah, I remember whenever I had started trying to force myself to learn the Persian alphabet, it took a lot of guidance.
Yes.
And but after I got it, I'm still slow at reading, but after I got it, I felt so accomplished. So there is definitely something rewarding in learning a different alphabet and learning how to read it and identify words. Definitely rewarding. There are a few options for learning how to speak Farsi. A lot of big cities offer community classes, and of course there are some universities that offer classes and even degrees. And then there are online options. So I guess for a person who is just looking to learn the language, maybe not majoring in it, but a lot of our viewers are polyglots or people that just do languages for hobbies and they're looking to pick up a language. What is your recommendation for going about learning, like independent study or finding a teacher?
Well, I would say, again, it all depends on your lifestyle, your budget, your time. Really, there are so many factors there. So, and above all, your schedule. For example, if you have a predictable, schedule, then it's a good idea to go kind of enroll yourself, in a class, community class or anything like that. If you know, okay, every week, I don't know, Tuesdays evenings for free. I mean, open, I can go there and just, learn the language.
Sure.
If you want, for example, to learn the language in a way that that's very effective, but you don't have a lot of time at disposal, definitely go with private tutors online, because then your time is more important than your money in that case, So
Yeah,
you may want to, exactly, you may want to pay a little bit more, but then to get very customized style of classes that really would zoom in, the teacher would zoom in, and of course would also be flexible enough to give you classes when you want. That's another thing. If you have an unpredictable schedule, you're working, you're traveling, if you're on a budget and you have a lot of time instead, then it's a good idea to go check out free online sources, right? So it's almost like, I think there are tons of websites nowadays, that you can go to and you can check out to build your vocabulary and all those things. But it's also important not to just, kind of go to any website, because sometimes the information can become a little bit contradictory, because every website may use a different system for, showing the vowels, for example. Just pick one website, stick to it, and just, go through everything on that website. That's my recommendation. Don't switch from one website to another, because it can get confusing, actually.
Sure, yeah.
And then, of course, YouTube is a wonderful source. I mean, I just have 89 videos, but there are many other, channels on YouTube with many more videos. And there are channels, for example, where you can find excerpts of movies and, with subtitles, and it is kind of played a few times, so you can follow the conversation. There are many, many, many free sources out there, really. It all depends on, how much time and money you have and what is important for you and how fast also you want to learn the language, right? So if you come and tell me, listen, I'm going to travel to Iran next month and I'm a very busy person, I just need to kind of be ready for just, knowing how to greet people, how to just interact with people on a basic level, I will say, okay, let's just get started with this. I will give you a crash course when you're available, and then you're good to go. So it depends on, really your situation.
So just targeting the
Exactly.
needs right away. Okay,
Yes.
that's great. So do you have any pointers for the beginning student who has just decided, I think I'll study Farsi? Let's get started. What do you say?
All right, so the first thing is, why do you want to do it? It's very important for you to have a very clear reason for it, because if you don't have a good reason, you're going to give up and it's going to be just a wasted effort, right? So I would say, first of all, make sure that you know why you're doing it. What is your goal? Do you want to be able to, have a better communication with your friends or family members who are Iranians, or do you want to be able to impress someone with your Farsi, or do you want to pass a test? Do you want to get a job where Iranians work? I mean, there are tons of reasons, right? First of all, you have to be very clear on that. Then the second thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you are realistic. Obviously, you cannot learn a language overnight. It's just not possible. Sometimes we have a lot of passion to start something, but then we don't have the stamina to stick to it, and just to go through with it. So it's important to be very realistic. I can tell you one thing. If you speak any European languages like English, German, French, Latin languages like Italian, Spanish, you have a very good chance that you find it relatively easy to learn Farsi, because Persian is an Indo-European language. There is a there's a really like a big chunk of vocabulary that you can find in European languages that also exist in Persian, for example, right? In fact, one of my students, Stefano Soranzo, is an Italian student but lives in Switzerland, and me, we are trying to create like an ebook that shows that's actually we're collecting, the words from all European languages that exist in Persian. So we're trying to create, this kind of database. So when people, kind of look at it, yes, when they look at it, they can see that, okay, wow, all right, this word exists in my language, and Iranians use it too. So, okay, it's not that bad, right? It's a good starting point to see the similarities between your native language and Farsi. That's a very important thing to do, because it will keep you motivated. It will make it easier for you to learn, and it will kind of, make you feel that you already know something, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not like you're not completely blank slate going into this process, right? So I would say definitely make sure that, you stay with words and try to kind of figure out where does this word, come from? If you can identify the stem, if you're learning vocabulary, see if the stem is similar to any of the languages, for example, any word in any of the languages that you know, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then of course, the more languages you know, becomes easier, for you to learn a new language. That's another thing. But if you don't know any other language, if you just speak one language and you want to get started with Farsi, still don't give up, too early, because generally it's a language that's on the level of grammar is much easier than a lot of other popular languages. Mm-hmm. For example, we do not have any gender difference in Farsi. Many languages have gender. For example, Latin languages, Spanish, Italian, French. There is a gender, there's a feminine, there's a masculine. You have to learn for each noun if this noun is masculine or feminine. In Farsi, we do not have that, right? It's very easy. There is no gender. There is no even differentiation between he or she. I mean, it's just, one pronoun. Another good thing about Farsi is you do not need to learn a different grammatical structure when you want to make a question. You can use exactly the statement as a question. You can just change your tone and it becomes a question, mm-hmm. right? Another cool thing is in conversational Farsi only, there is no separate future tense. The future tense in conversational Farsi is the same as present tense, for example, right? So basically, you're just learning two tenses, past and present. Everything else would be derived from these two. So, I mean, it's kind of easy if you compare it to many, many other languages.
Sure, yes.
You do not have to sit there and kind of, memorize like 100 different types of, variations of verb endings for each verb.
Sure.
So, yeah, my point is, it's not as bad as it may sound. But the problem with Farsi is because there are not reliable resources for it out there, and it's very confusing for people to kind of just browse through everything that's out there, then it may sound that it's very difficult to learn. But in fact, It's not, right? Mm-hmm. So just find the right teacher or the right resource and then just stick with it and you're good to go. There won't be any issues, I promise.
Right. I can absolutely understand what you're saying with, sticking to a particular resource. I guess, with us, writing Farsi in Pinglish and things like that, just the different ways to make these vowels can be confusing. Like, I thought I saw that as a double A, or I thought I saw this with a line somewhere else. So, yes. Yeah. And then the examples that you've given with why Farsi is easy, I'm thinking about the other languages that I've studied and thinking how, it's not that way in this language. It's much more difficult. So I totally see what you're saying there. So, my final question for you is what do you love the most about your language and teaching Farsi?
Well, what I love about the Persian language, just as a language, is that it sounds very sweet and soft. It sounds really nice. And another thing is it's a wonderful language for poetry. And the reason I say this is because, especially, it connects to grammar. Because I just said that, for example, there is no difference between he or she, no? Mm-hmm. This is a sort of ambiguity that you can use in your favor if you're writing a poem, right? So for example, you can write a poem about your dog. Nobody knows. It could sound like, like a very romantic poem. And everybody thinks, oh, this is about a very pretty person or a handsome guy. And at the end, the last line, the audience will know, or the reader will know, oh, this was about her dog, So there is this kind of playfulness, right? Because there is this kind of ambiguity in the language, just because of the fact that we do not have many, kind of like the differentiation between he or she, something very simple. So it gives it more poetic capacity, So in this sense, I think it's a very unique language. Well, I'm sure there are other languages which are also, very perfect. They're very good for poetry, but this one aspect of Persian I specifically love. Especially there are concepts. If you, for example, study classical poetry, Persian classical poetry, there are concepts that are also very difficult to translate, to other languages. Which in fact there are concepts which mostly come from Sufism or mysticism, and I love this spiritual aspect of language. It has words for various spiritual states of being that I do not find in other languages. So there are so many beautiful things about this language. I get emotional when I talk about it, but in general, what I love about teaching it is the simple fact that it makes it possible for me to meet so many people coming from all walks of life, from all corners of the world. And for me, like when I wake up every morning, my schedule is different, compared to the day before or the day after, because I keep kind of adjusting my schedule to the schedule of my students. So the fact that no day is similar, to any other day, when I come, to my laptop and I start working, and the fact that I can interact with all these wonderful, beautiful, sweet people coming from, all corners of the world, and they're teaching me about their life, their culture, and what is important for them. And, just when you interact with those many people that are so different, from one another, you realize at the end of the day, we as human beings, more or less, we are similar. I mean, we love more or less the same things. We have similar aspirations. Everybody wants to excel, or to be good at whatever they're doing. So it's a very sweet space, and I feel very lucky to be able, to have a job like this that in fact makes me happy. Like I really want to come to my laptop every day and just do this work. So in this sense, I'm very, very lucky. Thank God.
Yeah. And your work has really, really benefited a lot of people. I've talked to some other people that have used some of the videos on your channel, and lots of positive responses. So thank you for your contribution to those of us that want to learn Farsi. It's very helpful.
You're most welcome. Thank you for being in the audience, because if I don't have an audience, there is no reason for me to make those videos. So it's really a mutual thing, and I have to really say right here, right now, that I'm really grateful to everyone who watches my videos or leaves me feedback and comments.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me and making this video to help everybody else out who's wanting to learn the language. Thank you, Tina.
Thank you, Jessica. It's wonderful what you're doing. So keep up the good work.
Thanks.
And there you have it. Is Persian the language for you? If you think so, I encourage you to check out the links in the description box below for excellent books, movies, YouTube videos, and websites to help you really get a grip on the language. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you know when we have a new video coming up. Be sure to stay tuned for week 7 when we find out what the next language is in the 52 Pickup Project. Until next time.